I never appreciated noise until I began to live in the absence of it. In Belfast, I would open my bedroom window in the morning and be greeted by the sounds of the sea and hear the men on their way to work at the dock. Edward would be in his office, discussing and debating with whatever poor soul had dared cross the threshold. In London, there was nowhere to hide. What with the parties and the balls and the socialising, even my dreams at night were busy and loud. But here, listen, there is nothing. Nothing but the sound of the breeze caressing the trees, the birds singing to one another, the soft crunch of one's footstep on the ground. The sound of one's breath. It frightened me at first, I cannot lie, to be living in such peace and quiet. Well, what does one do all day with just her husband and her own thoughts for company? Edward was always so busy with his ships and his politics, and I was always so busy entertaining the wives of his associates. So, in the times we stayed here, I was forced to learn how to entertain myself. Edward liked the peacefulness. He thought this was the perfect place to escape from the chaos of the city and to reflect. I silently disagreed. To me, it was torturous. Oh, this place is beautiful, yes, do not get me wrong, but it was torturously and mind-numbingly dull. Well, there was nothing for me to do but to read or to sew or to annoy the poor cook with my dinner requests. We're so far away from anyone that entertaining guests was a rarity that I longed to indulge in. Oh, but Edward, you see, when he was not busy, he was busy, writing letters and discussing the happenings in Parliament and bouncing ideas off of me or the poor gardener. He was a constant murmuring in the background of my daily routine here. After lunch, he would always insist that we take a walk together. They were the only times in our marriage I have ever seen him so silent and peaceful. It is the sign of a good marriage that one can walk with his wife without feeling discomfort in the silence between them. He said that to me one day, right over there. I smiled at him and nodded, because To my surprise, I was inclined to agree. When you are the wife of a politician, you share your husband with everyone else. There is rarely any privacy, and nowhere is sacred, not even the bedroom. But here, in Glenfarn, in this forest, it was our time together, just the two of us. Our time was sacred. Just the two of us, breathing in synchronicity, his hand clasped in mine, strolling the path. Sometimes we talk about how young and idealistic we used to be. We talked about our courtship, how Edward was besotted from the moment he met me, and how I was initially cautious to accept his affections. But I fell quite in love with him without realizing. He was an easy man to love. I realized a lot on those walks with Edward. I realized that the smell of the soil after a downpour was as much a comfort to me as the sound of the sea lapping the shore. That the birdsong was prettier than what any orchestra could reproduce. I realized that as much as I loved him, my life revolved around Edward and his job. Such, I suppose, is the role of a wife. I realized I wanted more in life than to just be a wife, but I would have to contend with what God had given me. I realized I never had been alone with myself, truly alone with just my own thoughts as company, and how much that terrified me. When we returned to Belfast or to London, I would miss those walks with Edward and those realizations. And I began to count the days until we could return here. I was here, alone. On that morning, Edward died. He told me to go on without him and that he would catch up. I think he knew what was coming and wanted to save me from witnessing the worst of it. It was cold that morning, bitterly so, and every step I took on the path, the icy path, was careful and deliberate. The frost was glistening on every crevice, and it was... I was so enamoured, I stayed longer than I usually would, until I could not ignore the tip of my nose becoming numb from the cold. Sometimes I wished I'd stayed out here and never returned. Like a child, playing and ignoring the shouts of their mother to come in for dinner. When I came home, he was dead. I clasped his limp hand in mine, praying for an impossible miracle. I realized that without him, my life was silent. Oh, I could still open our bedroom window in Belfast and hear the screaming of the seagulls, but he wasn't beside me pottering in the office. I could go out for dinner in London, but he would not be beside me guffawing at some joke. I could walk these paths, but he would not beside me. I miss the noise that he created. I miss him. But such is grief, but sharp and messy and cruel. You learn to make room for the pain, and you learn to live in the silence. And someday, maybe you learn to appreciate it too.